Hi, I'm Terry Luck, and I'm here today with our pastor, Father Jeremiah Boland. We're going to talk today about the reopening of OLPH Church. Yes. Father, it looks like with the announcement that there's a lot of anticipation, excitement, and anxiety among parishioners.
Yes, there's been a tremendous interest in what does reopening mean, how long will it take. About a little over a week ago, the Archdiocese issued a number of directives. In order to reopen the church, you had to go through a process of certification, meeting certain benchmarks for how the sacraments would be celebrated. So quickly, I established a task force. The task force met, witnessed all the webinars. We tackled all of the benchmarks, and last Friday, we were one of the first parishes to be certified to be opening. So the parish will be opened on this coming Wednesday for the celebration of the sacraments of baptism and marriage. We can celebrate funerals and celebrate the sacrament of reconciliation.
Wow, it looks like that's great news, of course, but so many questions have probably come in from parishioners. We actually have a number of questions right here that I'm sure a lot of people are wondering the same thing. So let's get right to some of these questions that you've received. First one, Father Jerry, my husband died this week. We are grateful that we can have a Mass in the church, albeit with only 10 people. My husband was a daily Mass goer. Can we still have a memorial Mass with our extended family and friends later? Can we have children and their spouses who live all over? Can the funeral this week be live streamed, and can we have music?
First of all, I'm very sorry to hear about your loss. Even in normal circumstances, the loss of a spouse is very devastating. But to have the circumstances of the pandemic has made the grieving process for families so much more complicated. First of all, we want to do everything we can to make sure that the funeral and the rites of the church are observed for your husband. And definitely, we'll have the Mass this week with 10 people, and then of course we can have a memorial Mass later down the road when a much larger group of people can gather. Many families have opted to have the funeral live streamed. We have the capabilities to do that. And yes, music is certainly recommended and will be available to you. Now we talk about 10 people. The priest, the cantor, the funeral director, the musician, they don't count in the number of 10. 10 is the members of the family. And we'll work with you for the planning of your liturgy, both for this funeral this week and for the memorial Mass later.
That's good news. All right, our second question. Father Jerry, you are going to preside at our wedding in a few weeks. I have been engaged for 2 years. My fiance and I really want to get married now and then have a big celebration next year. Can we do both celebrations?
Absolutely. First of all, congratulations on your upcoming marriage. And my heart goes out to all brides and grooms that there's so much uncertainty as when you could get married, how you're going to get married. And I totally understand, given the length of your engagement and how long you've known known each other, you want to get married now. So we can have the sacrament of marriage with 10 people now, and then later next year we can have a big public celebration of your marriage.
Oh, that's great news. It's great news for so many people. Question number 3, Father Boland, I am over 65. Will I be able to attend church services?
Very good question. You know, there are many opinions being given about, people's age, being in a vulnerable population. Can I participate? First of all, you absolutely can attend church services. People who are over 65 and have, serious health concerns, it's a risk. It's a risk that you'd have to decide whether or not you want to undertake. We are going to do everything here at OLPH to make our liturgies and access to the church as safe as possible. Obviously, we cannot guarantee that it's going to be completely safe without no risk. We will take the measures that we need to take. We will be observing social distancing. We will be thoroughly disinfecting the church after every service. But please feel free, if you're well and up to it, to join us for liturgy.
Question number 4. I understand that for now only 10 people can participate in weddings, funerals, and baptism. Who decides who the 10 are?
I do. No, I'm only kidding. So in the case of a wedding, the bride and groom decide who the other 8 people will be. At a funeral, the family will make the decision. At baptisms, the mom and dad will make the choices. When you talk about reopening the church, it's not like, oh, I see there's a funeral next Thursday, I think I'll go to the funeral. These early celebrations of these particular sacraments will be limited to those that have been selected by the family involved.
Okay. And for a baptism, for example, if you have the parents and the godparents, so that would only be 6 other people and the child.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Question number 5. Father Boland, I am 70 and I have my share of health issues. I'm anxious to go to confession, but I am concerned about social distancing. I do not want to be in a position where I have to shout my sins across the sanctuary with everyone listening. Not that I have done anything really bad. How will we celebrate the sacrament?
Very good question. And, the diocese had a number of recommendations. And if you're familiar with the sanctuary, there's what used to be the old baptistry, which is a fairly large room. We'll be hearing confessions there with the doors closed, and there'll be a white noise machine, so it'll be as private as it can be. We will be able to have 9 people waiting in the ladies' chapel, and if there are additional penitents, they'll be lined up outside the door at 6 feet intervals, and as one person leaves, another person will enter. But we will take every measure we can to protect the confidentiality of confession. Confession starts Saturday at 4 p.m., and we will hear confessions as long as we need to. We'll be hearing confessions every Saturday at 4. As things evolve, if there's a better time, we'll make adjustments. But for now, we want to keep with the 4 o'clock time frame.
And then there'll be one entrance on Grove Street into Lady Chapel, and then exiting a different door. So there won't be people crossing paths. That's very safe.
Yes. And then after confessions, the chapel will be disinfected, so we'll be ready to go with the next celebration.
That's excellent. All right, question number 6. If I go to church with my family, must we, our family, observe social distancing, or can we sit in the same pew? And what about masks?
That's another good question. Yes, if you live as a family in a domicile, when you can all sit in the same pew, you don't have to observe social distancing with one another. You will have to observe social distancing with others, so there'll be people, either 6 feet behind you or 6 feet ahead of you. Masks have to be worn throughout the service, and the masks are intended to protect others from you. Because of the large number of people that are asymptomatic, we have to err on caution that a person could test positive for COVID and not realize it. And so the masks protect others from being potentially infected. There are also other measures at different points. The priest will be wearing a shield during communion, during the actual baptism of a baby. These, again, are measures to protect whoever we're ministering to from any possibility of being infected.
All right, question number 7. Father Boland, I am over 70 with my share of health issues. My doctor has strongly advised that I avoid large group settings for the foreseeable future. While I am delighted that things are opening up, I won't be back for a long time. So I miss communion, but I don't think I would qualify for ministry of care. What do you recommend?
This is a terrific question, and there are many people, until there's a vaccine, that aren't going to be able to come to large public gatherings. I really have a hope and a dream. We've been talking a lot about the virus as an enemy, and we're battling this virus. And one of the things that I've been talking to some parishioners about is I'd love to have, for lack of a better phrase, a Eucharistic brigade. Every one of us live in neighborhoods, live in buildings. We're aware of a neighbor upstairs or downstairs or down the block that can't come to church. Wouldn't it be wonderful if after every Mass, if you'd be able and willing, you could bring the Eucharist to that person? It would require very simple training. It would bring enormous comfort to someone who just can't come. And the live stream Mass is beautiful. Mm-hmm. But we're all desirous of receiving the Eucharist. And so once we open up the church for public Masses, I'm going to invite anyone who would like to be part of this Eucharistic brigade of bringing the Eucharist into the neighborhoods. We have 3,300 families, and I want to be able to feel on any Sunday of the week, any Sunday of the year, that anyone who wants to go to communion can receive communion. If we all pitch in, we can accomplish this. And again, if you live in a neighborhood and you're aware of someone that can't come, ask them if they'd like to receive communion. And then maybe you could be the one who would bring them communion every week. There's a simple ritual that's followed, but that's my hope, that it's going to be a long time before the extended family of Our Lady Perpetual Help is going to be able to be gathered in church. Between now and then, I want anyone that would like to receive communion to be able to get it.
Yeah, that's a beautiful idea. So that would extend way beyond the Ministry of Care at this point.
Yes. Yeah. The Ministry of Care is a spectacular ministry that is focused on the homebound, people recovering from surgery, older parishioners who are immobile. But we're now, as we are in this pandemic, dealing with a much larger group of people who don't fit the traditional category of Ministry of Care. In a sense, the Eucharistic Parade is going to be Ministry of Care. It's just that I want to get this organized and off the ground as soon as public Masses are permitted.
That is just a beautiful idea. I love that. I'll do whatever I can to publicize it.
Thank you, Terry.
All right, question number 8. Father Boland, I have faithfully observed the Easter duty since I made my first communion many years ago. I have not been able to fulfill my obligation this year. What can I do?
Yeah, this is a great question. For many people, the Easter duty is, the one time of the year that they make a special effort to celebrate the sacrament of confession, go to Mass and receive communion. It's really part of the Easter journey. And this year, a person couldn't fulfill the obligation because the churches were not open. When the pandemic began in early March, Pope Francis dispensed every Catholic from the Easter duty this year. And he has tried to assure all of us that if we want to seek the Lord's mercy, that's all we need to do at this point. That we can trust in God's terrific love and care for all of us. The desire to be forgiven meets the obligation of the Easter duty this year.
Okay, we've got one more question. Time for one more. Father, I am grateful for all the measures that are being undertaken to keep us safe and return to some form of public worship. My husband and I love the family Mass at 9:30, even though our children are long gone. Will we ever have a Mass like that again?
This is a question that really gets, to the heart of how difficult it is for churches right now. We yearn for the day that we'll be back, in quotes, to normal. Mm-hmm. And that's, it's going to take some time before we get there. Mm-hmm. Eventually, we will get there. The realities of social distancing and other measures to keep people safe, the wearing of masks, all these things are going to have an impact on the public element of worship. Some things we just get used to, I remember when they first made us wear seatbelts in a car. I resisted that forever. And now I wouldn't think of getting into the car without wearing a seatbelt. Masks, I think, are the same way. At first you feel very awkward, and now it's second nature. If you're going to go into a store or a shop, you're going to be talking with someone, you just put the mask on. So things like that will get adjusted to. We just are going to have to support one another. I was reading an article by a theologian recently, who was saying that, we're going to look back on the pandemic, and it's going to be it was much easier to stay in place. What's going to be much harder is returning to normalcy because of the changes and adjustments we have to make. He made a case for, a countercultural sense of patience. We just need to be patient. Things will work out. This parish has always seized the moment, and we're going to do everything we can to have vital and alive liturgies. And I yearn for the day that those little kids will be sitting all around me at the altar during the homily, and everybody from toddlers to older parishioners celebrating around the same table.
Yeah, that'll be great when that happens again. Well, it's exciting at least that we're at phase 1, and this week it'll start with the reconciliation this weekend.
Yes.
Well, I hope things go smoothly for all of us, and if people have any other questions, can they still contact you?
Yes, please don't hesitate to email me, text me, call me. After we've had a number of these celebrations, we'll go into what's called phase 1A, which is we'll have the church open for a couple of hours every day for private prayer, eventually maybe having adoration of the Blessed Sacrament. Phase 2 is to begin the process of public masses, which again will begin with 10 people. The diocese has not set a date for that yet. A lot of this depends on the phasing in of public life and society at large. As soon as we're able to have public liturgies, we'll be one of the first to be offering them.
And I know people have probably asked you questions about confirmation and First Communion, and we're really not at a point at all to schedule those or even
right
at this point.
Yes.
But that'll happen.
That'll happen. We, with the weekend of the shutdown was the weekend we were supposed to have confirmation for our religious ed students. Bishop Perry called me right away and said he will do everything humanly possible to get that confirmation rescheduled once we can have that size of a group in the church.
Okay, great.
Good.
Well, thank you so much for answering all these questions. I hope this is helpful for you, and we'll see you soon. God bless you.
Karen.